To take revenge on the school bully girl, the woman underwent plastic surgery to become a mixed-race beauty. Moreover, she relearned how to walk, correcting her hunchback and slouch. She even bought various designer clothes to enhance her fashion sense and styling skills, packaging herself as a socialite. She aimed to completely avenge the woman who bullied her since childhood, stole her first love, and now meddled in her marriage to ruin her family. Samire was an ordinary girl with an average appearance, modest family background, and unimpressive grades. Such a harmless existence, yet she became the target of bullying by the school beauty Karen. Karen was beautiful, wealthy, and had many friends. She exploited all her advantages and resources, fixating on the ordinary Samire, determined to step on her. From kindergarten to high school, Karen's bullying was relentless, varied in form, and continuous. Samire thought about escaping and even sought help from the school and her parents, but all she received was cold indifference. So, Samire had no choice but to endure silently. Until one day, her desk was covered with insulting graffiti again. The school heartthrob saw it, cleaned it up for her, and confessed his feelings, asking her out. Samire felt shy but happy. But Samire was very insecure about her appearance, and since she wanted to study hard and get into college, she politely declined the heartthrob's feelings. Unbeknownst to her, this was another prank orchestrated by Karen. Karen, disgusted by Samire's ugly face, wanted to humiliate her severely. At that moment, the homeroom teacher discovered them bullying Samire, and Karen was taken to the classroom for a talk. Samire naively thought she might get an apology from Karen in front of the teacher, but she underestimated Karen's tactics. Karen only needed to act cute and weak, and she could turn black into white, instantly transforming Samire from a victim into a perpetrator. At this point, Samire was completely awakened. Reasoning alone wouldn't beat Karen. Her only way out was to leave the social circle that included Karen. So she studied desperately, got into the University of Tokyo, and finally escaped forever from the place with Karen. At university, she met senior Kippei, who was gentle, caring, and understood her fragility. Samire felt Kippei was her salvation. After graduating, they quickly married, and Samire thought happiness had finally arrived. But soon after marriage, Kippei changed. Her husband started lying and distancing himself, even staying out all night. The woman's sixth sense told Samire that Kippei was having an affair, so she immediately hired a private detective to investigate him. Kippei was indeed unfaithful, but what she never expected was that his affair partner was actually Karen. This was definitely no coincidence, and this time, Samire decided not to stay silent. She wanted to protect her own happiness. The next day, Samire went directly to the company to find Karen, demanding in person that she break up with Kippei immediately, or she would expose her affair with a married man. Karen sneered disdainfully, mocking that Samire was still so cowardly. She was not afraid at all that Samire would reveal the matter. Even if she did, it would only bring her shame. In the end, Kippei would still choose the beautiful and coquetted her. After Karen finished speaking, she turned and left. Samire grabbed her. Karen deliberately knocked over a vase and sat on the ground, covering her face and screaming, "Samire hit me." The security guards who arrived upon hearing the noise thought Karen was attacked and immediately restrained Samire without hesitation. Samire desperately tried to explain, but couldn't find the words. After struggling free, she suddenly pushed Karen down. Feeling defeated, Samire went home, and Kippei, upon learning the whole story, knelt and apologized. Samire thought he had finally awakened, but unexpectedly, he asked for a divorce and was even willing to leave everything behind. Her husband strongly defended Karen, claiming he had fallen in love with her voluntarily. When Kippei first met Karen, Karen told him she was a classmate of Samire and said she had been bullied by Samire during school, which led to her depression. Kippei believed her wholeheartedly and comforted her with sympathy. Over time, he developed feelings of affection for this fragile Karen. Samire was utterly disillusioned and no longer argued. It turned out that Kippei was also an ordinary person easily swayed by appearances. Samire agreed to divorce and also received most of Kippei's assets. However, when her parents found out about her divorce, they cut ties with her because they thought a divorced daughter was shameful. The matter was not over yet. When the news of her public assault spread to her workplace, she was ruthlessly fired. Under multiple blows, Samire completely collapsed, staying at home for half a year, not leaving the house. Only when the food in her refrigerator was exhausted did she go downstairs to find something to eat. Downstairs, Samire opened her mailbox and found wedding invitations from Kippei and Karen, with Karen writing words full of insults on them. Angrily, Samire tore the invitation into pieces. Karen's hypocritical and smug face haunted her mind. The anger that had accumulated in her heart for over 10 years finally erupted at this moment. Since Karen stole her husband, Samire swore to destroy Karen's marriage. But how could an ordinary woman from the bottom tier defeat the overwhelmingly advantaged Karen? Sumire turned her head and saw a plastic surgery flyer, which suddenly enlightened her and sparked a new idea. Sumire invested all her divorce settlement into facial plastic surgery, first getting a nose job and double eyelid surgery. After a few months, Sumire finally had an impeccable mixed-race beautiful face. To achieve a complete transformation, Sumire relearned how to walk, corrected her hunching and slouching, practiced calligraphy diligently, and forcibly changed her left-handed habit. A year later, she transformed from an obscure person into a radiant beauty, and her carefully prepared revenge plan was about to begin. Sumire moved across from Kitbae and Karen to monitor them, then took a job at the flower shop Kitbae visited every day. When Kitbae came to buy flowers and saw her, he completely didn't recognize that she was his ex-wife, because she was simply too beautiful, with not a trace of the past Sumire. Every time, Sumire carefully helped him select flowers, slowly approached him, and used her meticulously crafted top-tier beauty to seduce him, breaking down his psychological defenses. The revenge battle had already begun. Would the fully transformed Sumire win? Sumire invested all her divorce compensation into facial plastic surgery and vowed to take revenge on her ex-husband and the school bully girl. However, her revenge plan was thwarted right at the start. First, Sumire went to the restaurant where her ex-husband Kitbae often went, pretending to run into him by chance. Then she seized the opportunity to serve Kitbae and his colleagues a dish. She lied that a friend had an emergency and couldn't come, so the extra portion couldn't be finished and could only be delivered to them. Seeing how beautiful Sumire looked, the colleagues immediately suggested they share the table and eat together. Sumire was confident Kitbae would agree because Kitbae was gentle and kind, not good at refusing. These qualities she once loved now became weaknesses she could exploit. After dinner, Sumire and Kitbae happened to walk home together. She took the opportunity to subtly bring up astronomy topics, precisely targeting Kitbae's interests. Sure enough, Kitbae was hooked and started talking endlessly as if he had become a different person. Sumire deliberately asked some constellation myths only they would understand, and Kitbae answered fluently. Their high mutual interest made him extremely excited, and Kitbae completely didn't realize that the confidant in front of him was his ex-wife. However, Kitbae's dullness also made Sumire feel quite uncomfortable. Seeing the atmosphere heat up, Sumire suggested they go for a drink. Kitbae hesitated, worried that his wife Karen would be unhappy if she found out. But he couldn't bear to part with this person he could talk to, and in the end, he took Sumire to a familiar bar. The bar's owner was a young man named Mirai. Kitbae introduced Sumire to him, and they ordered the same drinks and continued chatting. Just as they were deeply engaged in conversation, Karen suddenly appeared. This unexpected encounter made Sumire panic. She quickly hurried into the bathroom. The mirror reflected a strange yet familiar stunning face, which gradually calmed her down. Sumire is no longer the woman who can be trampled upon. She is now a vengeful woman with beauty and charm rivaling Karen's. In an instant, a malicious and perfect plan takes shape in her mind. She not only wants to take back Kitbae, but also to become good friends with Karen. Sumire believes that after winning Karen's trust, she will push her into hell, making her taste the pain of betrayal and losing everything. Calming her emotions, she returns to the bar counter, puts on a friendly and enthusiastic smile, and takes the initiative to introduce herself to Karen. She says she has known for a long time that Kitbae has a gentle and beautiful wife, and she particularly admires Kitbae for buying flowers every day to give to Karen. Sumire has always wanted to meet the loved Karen, and today she finally has the chance. This compliment hits Karen's vanity perfectly. She was once overwhelmed by excessive praise and quickly relaxed her guard. When parting from Karen, she also proactively exchanged contact information and arranged to have afternoon tea together next time. Thus, Sumire easily became friends with Karen, and her plan for revenge took the first successful step. However, she hadn't had time to be happy when Mirai suddenly stopped her, bluntly asking if she had a grudge against Karen. The panic Sumire showed when she saw Karen earlier was keenly noticed by Mirai. Sumire immediately denied it, and Mirai did not continue to question, but her heart sounded an alarm. Mirai is not an ordinary person and might cause trouble for her. After returning, Sumire immediately investigated Mirai. She found that Mirai had nothing special. He used to work as a host in Kabuki-cho. Perhaps this job helped him accumulate wealth, which is why he opened this bar. Karen soon invited Sumire for afternoon tea. Not long after, Karen eagerly boasted that her side job was modeling and proudly showed her social media account with tens of thousands of followers. Sumire did her best to be attentive, trying to convey high emotional value through her words and attitude. Then, Sumire deliberately asked about how Karen and Kitbae met, wanting to hear how this woman who stole her marriage would package herself. Unexpectedly, Karen casually described their relationship as pure love, even claiming she was the one who saved Kitbae. Karen disparaged Kippei's ex-wife as worthless, not knowing that the problematic woman she spoke of was sitting right across from her. Samire was furious, but could only force a smile and agree. Then Karen took her to pick out a top-quality tie and asked her to help choose one as well. Samire chose a very understated and simple style, knowing Kippei's taste well, confident that he would like it. As expected, Kippei, unaware of the situation, hesitated but ultimately chose a tie that represented his ex-wife's aesthetic. Karen's face instantly lost its smile. The next day, when Kippei went to the flower shop to buy flowers, Samire saw him with that tie and couldn't help but feel secretly pleased. She had unknowingly added the first crack to Kippei and Karen's relationship. Kippei came for their wedding anniversary, intending to give Karen a large bouquet and a surprise gift on that day. But he was really bad at choosing gifts, and Samire saw an opportunity and immediately offered to help. After discussing in a cafe, they ordered a big bouquet for Karen and a designer bag. Samire also took on the task of ordering and delivery, ensuring they created a perfect sense of ceremony. To discuss the details, they exchanged contact information, and Kippei trusted Samire to handle everything. This trust pleased Samire. She aimed to ruin their first anniversary. On the day of the anniversary, Samire used her knowledge of Kippei's work to call and file a complaint to Kippei's company, explicitly demanding Kippei handle it. Kippei spent a busy day and, exhausted, returned home late with nothing in hand. Karen saw that he was not only late but also empty-handed and immediately launched a barrage of accusations. Only then did he realize that neither the gift nor the bouquet had been delivered. The next day, Kippei asked Samire what had happened. Samire pretended to be innocent and blamed the failure on poor internet connection, preventing the order from going through. She also hypocritically said she would explain everything to Karen herself. Kippei hurriedly stopped her, warning that if Karen found out she had asked another woman to handle it, she would be even angrier. Samire feigned comfort, but subtly implied that Karen was too sensitive. These words of provocation successfully created another crack between them. Not long after, Mirai unexpectedly came to her door. He directly showed her a photo of Samire and Kippei at the cafe and demanded that Samire meet him at his bar that evening. Worried he would send the photo to Karen, Samire could only agree to meet him on time. She initially thought Mirai wanted to extort money, but he revealed that he knew Samire was seeking revenge on Karen and Kippei. He longed to become Sumire's right-hand man, and in fact, he also harbored resentment toward Karen. Despite being married, Karen often secretly exchanged longing looks with him at the bar, behind her husband's back. He deeply believed that Kippei and Karen's marriage was a forced acquisition and secretly hoped they would eventually suffer the consequences. Mirai said he would do his best to help Samire. Suddenly, an unexpected revenge partner left Samire at a loss. Although having an accomplice on the revenge journey is indeed better, Samire was unsure of Mirai's true intentions, so she decided to let him act on his own. The next day, Samire saw Kippei walking dejectedly past the flower shop. She inquired and learned that Kippei had given Karen a gift last night, but Karen was still unhappy. To soothe his wounded heart, Samire suggested they go to the planetarium to watch the stars together. Kippei immediately agreed, and the familiar starry sky quickly relaxed him. Kippei felt that Samire understood him very well, but he forgot that this was once his and his ex-wife's favorite place to visit. On the way home, Kippei emotionally talked about his first love, his tone full of nostalgia. Seizing the opportunity, Samire pretended to feel dizzy and suddenly collapsed into Kippei's arms. She lied that she was anemic and asked Kippei to take her back to her apartment. She believed that the gentle and kind Kippei wouldn't refuse, but unexpectedly, Kippei held his ground at the last moment. Kippei said he couldn't keep secrets from Karen anymore, and he shouldn't go to a single woman's house. Samire could only return home disappointed. This failed attempt to test him dealt her a heavy blow. Just as she was feeling frustrated, Mirai sent a new message. Karen had come to his bar again. Karen was complaining that Kippei's gift was too tacky and openly seducing Mirai to secretly date her. Despite having a husband, Karen shamelessly flirted with other men. Mirai saw this as a great opportunity, so he agreed to Karen. Now, Mirai was watching to see how Samire would use this chance. When she saw the message, Samire immediately perked up. She cut her hair short and, in a very decisive manner, agreed to collaborate with Mirai. A dual-track revenge plan quickly took shape. She planned to set up a double date with Mirai. She would bring Kippei, and Mirai would bring Karen, meeting at the same place, allowing this couple to face each other directly. What sparks would fly among these four people? To win Kippei back, Samire teamed up with Mirai and orchestrated a chance encounter. The first step in the plan was for Mirai to agree to a secret date with Karen. The two went out for dinner and shopping together, and the atmosphere was quite ambiguous. Karen's flirtatious and suggestive words even made Mirai temporarily forget she was married. Capturing Karen's moment of relaxation, Mirai tacitly signaled Samire from the shadows and took her hand. Just as Karen was immersed in this secret relationship, Samire pretended to appear and witnessed the whole thing. Karen hurriedly tried to explain, but Mirai left as planned. Samire questioned Karen, "You have a husband. Why are you secretly seeing other men?" Karen quickly argued that she and Mirai were just friends. Samire countered, "Since they're just friends, she can tell Kitpei about what happened today." Karen immediately gave in and pleaded with Samire to keep the matter confidential. Samire explained that if she wanted her to keep it a secret, she had to agree to a condition. They, Kitpei and Mirai, would go on a 4-person camping trip, and Karen had to prove her loyalty to Kitpei in front of everyone. With evidence in someone else's hands, Karen had no choice but to agree. However, what Karen could never have imagined was that after parting ways with her, Mirai immediately went to find Kitpei and told him that Karen had asked him out. Kitpei looked stunned. To convince Kitpei, Mirai even showed him chat logs of Karen asking him out, and Samire even saw him and Karen meeting. With all the witnesses and evidence, Kitpei was completely convinced. He looked distressed, unsure how to face Karen. Mirai assured Kitpei that he had absolutely no feelings for Karen. To convince Karen to completely abandon her feelings for him, Mirai suggested a camping trip for the 4 of them. Mirai would feign affection for Samire, and upon witnessing this, Karen would naturally gradually dissipate her feelings for him. Kitpei agreed. Thus, Sumire's meticulously planned camping trap for the couple was officially launched. Upon arrival at the campsite, Karen sat in her chair like a queen, commanding everyone to serve her as if it were her right. Kitpei watched her bossy demeanor contrasted with Sumire's quiet and efficient demeanor, and a complex feeling welled up within him. This was the essence of Sumire's camping plan. Outdoor life was the perfect stage for revealing true nature. Samire wanted to expose Kitpei to Karen's spoiled, bad temper, and completely destroy their relationship. Kitpei asked Karen to help gather some branches for the fire. Karen, who had never done any heavy work, returned with a large handful of wet green leaves. Kitpei asked her to go back and gather more, but she immediately became angry and complained that Kitpei hadn't explained the request clearly. Samire immediately stepped in to help, deftly whittling the branches into thin strips and lighting the bonfire. Kitpei and Mirai couldn't help but admire Sumire's skill. Eventually, Karen simply delegated the fire-building task to Samire, while she sat contentedly playing with her phone. Kitpei watched the scene with a sense of frustration. In the evening, Samire reminded Kitpei that they were running low on firewood. Gathering firewood was Karen's job, and Kitpei couldn't help but complain that Karen was being lazy. Samire, pretending to be kind, suggested that Karen might be too tired, and then she went to gather some firewood. Kitpei, worried about the danger of darkness, insisted on accompanying her. Samire feigned hesitation, asking, "Are you really comfortable leaving Karen and Mirai alone in the camp?" This question accurately captured Kitpei's concerns, but he ultimately couldn't bear to leave Samire alone in the darkness, so he decided to accompany her to collect firewood. After the two left, the atmosphere in the tent became tense. Mirai apologized to Karen for running away. Karen immediately complained bitterly, blaming Mirai for forcing her to camp in such a remote place. Karen, now exhausted and backaching, summoned Mirai to give her a shoulder massage. Up in the mountain, Samire seized the opportunity and quietly led Kitpei to a spot where she could see the tent. When Kitpei witnessed Karen and Mirai's intimate moment, he couldn't believe his eyes. Sumire's attempt at comforting him might have been a misunderstanding. They had to hurry and gather firewood before dark. By the time they were descending the mountain, it was already dark. Sumire's flashlight batteries had vanished, and she slipped while walking. Kitpei had to help her rest on the mountainside while they waited for help. He had assumed it was all just a fluke, unaware that Samire had orchestrated it, creating a chance for him to be alone. They lit a bonfire to keep warm, and Kitpei said bitterly, "Maybe Karen is just hoping we're out of the way." Kitpei then confessed to Samire that he was divorced and had hurt his ex-wife in the most brutal way for Karen. Looking back now, Kitpei began to doubt his decision. Samire, keenly seizing the opportunity, pressed the issue. "If you had a chance to reconcile with your ex-wife, what would you do?" Sumire's question wasn't about hoping for a reconciliation. She simply wanted to prove whether her place in Kitpei's heart surpassed Karen's. This question left Kitpei in a long silence and hesitation. Kitpei then said that everything depended on his ex-wife, believing she must resent him now. Samire was deeply disappointed by this answer. It was Kitpei who had cruelly abandoned her. Now, he was feigning understanding, which was utterly hypocritical. Ultimately, it was simply cowardice, a reluctance to face and admit his mistakes. Samire decided to take revenge on the man before her. Samire slowly approached Kitpei and quietly probed if he had ever considered starting over, choosing a partner who was serious, reliable, and wouldn't betray him, like her. This ambiguous suggestion stirred a new passion in Kip-hei, already wavering. Meanwhile, Mirai and Karen, down the mountain, were also busy. Mirai tentatively asked Karen her true feelings about Kip-hei. Karen bluntly admitted that she had no feelings for an honest man like Kip-hei and had chosen him simply because he offered the best qualities among her many suitors. Although Kip-hei hadn't divorced his ex-wife at the time, it was thanks to her that he was able to get over his plain-looking ex-wife. Upon hearing this, Mirai immediately inquired whether Karen and Kip-hei's ex-wife knew each other. Karen proudly replied that she and the woman had known each other since kindergarten. Mirai was deeply shocked. She was so cruel that she even tried to seize the husband of a friend she'd known since childhood. In the mountains, Kip-hei politely rejected Samair's advances, arguing that she couldn't do anything to destroy the family again. Samair gently comforted him, explaining that it was Karen who had truly destroyed the family. She explained that she wasn't with Kip-hei to destroy his family, she simply wanted to heal his broken heart. This thoughtful reassurance completely broke down Kip-hei's defenses. He embraced Samair and kissed her passionately. Kip-hei had no idea that this was his ex-wife. Samair, while he wasn't paying attention, secretly took intimate photos of the two of them with her phone. Her plan to get close to Kip-hei had finally succeeded. Soon after, Mirai and Karen approached them. Karen feigned concern for Kip-hei, but Kip-hei had completely forgotten. Samair's eyes signaled to Mirai that their plan had succeeded. After returning from camp, Kip-hei's mind was completely occupied by Samair. Their relationship quickly intensified, and Kip-hei gradually lost interest in Karen. Samair prepared to take her revenge plan a step further, and Mirai offered to continue her assistance. Samair was a little confused as to why he was so willing to help. Mirai explained that he knew Karen and Kip-hei's ex-wife were childhood friends. He had previously only known Karen as a bad person, but he hadn't expected her to be so evil. He couldn't tolerate someone who so recklessly trampled on others' happiness. What Mirai didn't know, however, was that Kip-hei's ex-wife was Samair. Samair was deeply moved by his words and decided to continue her revenge alliance with him. Samair told Mirai that if their upcoming plan succeeded, they would completely corner Kip-hei. The next day, Samair and Kip-hei continued their date, deepening their relationship. Seeing Kip-hei's exhausted and troubled expression, Samair immediately saw through his thoughts. Kip-hei must be feeling guilty about this extramarital affair. However, Kip-hei couldn't let go of the ease and comfort of being with Samair. This man was cunning. He could easily find relief by giving up one, but he wanted both. Samair helped him to a bench to rest and deliberately mentioned the meteor shower next week. Kip-hei couldn't help but express his desire to see it with Samair, but he immediately regretted his words, saying he couldn't leave Karen behind. Samair looked at his hypocritical attitude with disdain. After returning home, Kip-hei invited Karen to the balcony to watch the meteor shower. Karen complained that the strong wind outside was damaging her skin, and she had no interest in stargazing. Kip-hei was disappointed, but this gave him an excuse to go find Samair, and he couldn't wait to ask her out. Kip-hei invited Samair to spend the night together. Samair was surprised. He hadn't expected such initiative. Although they had been married, he absolutely couldn't sleep with Kip-hei now. It turned out that Kip-hei meant stargazing. The two of them went to a meadow to watch the stars. The city sky was dim. Kip-hei sighed, wishing he could go outside with Samair to see the dazzling night sky. Samair felt the time was right and immediately said she knew a great place to watch the meteor shower. Kip-hei took the hint. Kip-hei promised Samair that he would officially and publicly announce his divorce from Karen as soon as possible, and that Samair would never be implicated. Finally, Kip-hei anxiously asked Samair if she could really accept him like this. Samair said absolutely yes. After separating from Kip-hei, Samair came to the bar to find Mirai, saying she was going to carry out her plan. Mirai couldn't help but worry about her. In truth, he still couldn't understand Samair's motive for her obsession with revenge. What had driven her to harbor such deep hatred for Karen and Kip-hei? Samair wanted to express her hatred, but the words were on her lips, and she couldn't bring herself to speak. Mirai told her not to force herself and to speak when she felt like it. Until then, he would always be there for her. Deeply touched by Mirai's thoughtfulness, Samair then had Mirai book a guest house in Kip-hei's name. The next day, Kip-hei lied to Karen about a business trip and set off with Samair to see the meteor shower. As soon as they got off the train, Kip-hei immediately embraced Samair. Kip-hei reassured Samair not to worry, saying no one knew them here. As he spoke, he was also thinking about doing something unique with Samair at the hotel that night. Samair, under the pretext of taking photos, actually sent Mirai a message. Samair said she had arrived at her destination and the plan could proceed. Mirai, receiving the message, began to execute his plan. Using voice-changing software and a pre-written script with Samair, he called Kip-hei's company to file a quality complaint. This type of complaint is usually handled by Kip-hei, but he was on annual leave, leaving the others with no experience in handling it. Mirai then deliberately increased pressure, threatening to post the incident online and spread the news if the matter wasn't addressed immediately. The colleague could only try to contact Kippei. Just as he was about to call Kippei's cell phone, he was stopped by a female colleague. Before Kippei took leave, he had specifically instructed not to use his phone during his vacation and that any call should be made to his home landline. The call reached Karen, who was home alone, and she answered. The female colleague apologized for disturbing her on her vacation, but Karen replied, "Isn't her husband on a business trip?" After hearing Karen's response, the female colleague hung up the phone without saying anything, then called Kippei's cell phone. Kippei was taking photos with Samayer when the company called, and his expression suddenly darkened. Samayer gently urged him to answer the call, and Kippei reluctantly stepped aside and answered. Samayer, standing behind him, radiated satisfaction. Everything was going as she had planned. After hearing the details, Kippei refused to leave, lying that he was out of town on vacation and had been drinking and wouldn't be back for 2 hours at the earliest. Kippei thought he could drag it out, but his colleague insisted on waiting for him to return. His lie was exposed. Disappointed, Kippei relented and agreed to return to the company. After the male colleague hung up, the female colleague sensed a discrepancy between the two calls. Kippei had requested leave from the company, but told his wife he was on a business trip. Just as the three were puzzled, another call came in. The caller claimed they were a resort hotel and that Kippei and his wife had reserved a room, but hadn't arrived yet. Since Kippei's phone number hadn't been reached, they had to call the number Kippei had reserved. After hanging up, the colleague was even more confused. Kippei's wife was clearly at home and clearly unaware that he was on vacation. Putting these clues together, coupled with Kippei's history of infidelity, several colleagues immediately suspected he was cheating again. This was Sumayer's reason for having Mirai book the B&B in Kippei's name, exposing Kippei's infidelity to his colleagues. Kippei didn't return to the office until late at night. The male colleague said the customer's phone number wasn't working for the time being. Let's put the complaint aside for now. He had something more important to ask Kippei. He led Kippei to a corner and bluntly asked if she was having an affair again. Kippei acquiesced, promising that his colleagues would report Kippei's situation to the company. Kippei returned home dejected. Karen gave him a perfunctory question before going upstairs, unconcerned about his early return. Kippei went to the balcony to process his emotions, unable to understand how his events had been discovered. Even more disturbing was the question of what punishment the company would impose upon learning of the situation. Samayer was eagerly anticipating this question. Kippei had been demoted the last time he had an affair, and this time, it was sure to be even worse. Sure enough, the company immediately took disciplinary action after receiving the report. The boss, without further consideration, offered Kippei 2 options: accept a transfer to a remote island or resign. In fact, the company's top management had demanded his dismissal the previous time he had an affair, but the company, considering his strong performance, demoted him. After this relapse, the company could no longer find any reason to condone Kippei, so the boss sent him home to think it over. Kippei returned home and told Karen about the transfer. As soon as she spoke, Karen's face was filled with emotion. She had married Kippei because of his respectable job and stable income. Now, when she was offered a move to the countryside, she politely declined. Kippei recalled Mirai's mention of Karen's persistent pestering of him and instantly grasped Karen's true intentions for staying in Tokyo. Remembering Karen's betrayal, Kippei could no longer suppress his emotions. Samayer watched the scene through the telescope and smiled heartily. This was only part of her plan. Her revenge on Kippei wasn't over yet. That evening, Samayer pretended to run into Kippei near his home. Exhausted by work and Karen, Kippei didn't care to be seen. Upon seeing Samayer, Kippei immediately embraced her and told her about the transfer. Samayer feigned remorse, but in reality, she felt secretly pleased, as everything was unfolding as she had anticipated. Kippei expressed uncertainty about whether to resign or accept the transfer. If he accepted, he would be confined to the island for the rest of his life, never able to return to Tokyo. Most importantly, he couldn't see Samayer anymore, so he decided to resign. If he resigned, Karen would surely divorce him, and Kippei would use this opportunity to get rid of Karen. After resigning, he could stay in Tokyo and continue looking for a job. While the pay would be significantly worse than his current one, at least he could see Samayer. However, Samayer wasn't going to give him that option. Her revenge plan wasn't that way. Samayer gently advised Kippei not to act rashly, suggesting a transfer to the island, where he could still keep a stable job. If Kippei was worried about not being able to see her, she was willing to go with him to the island. There, they could live a quiet life, away from the hustle and bustle. Kippei was struck by lightning as these words came out. He hadn't anticipated such a dramatic turn of events. Not only did he keep his job, but he also managed to keep the 2 women by his side. Kippei couldn't help but feel secretly delighted. The next day, he accepted the transfer, but he requested the company not to share the reason with Karen. The boss solemnly stated that the company would not disclose any details. He also stated that Kippei must properly handle personal and family matters, otherwise the company would no longer offer any leniency. Kippei informed Karen of his decision, and she couldn't hide her excitement. With Kippei out of Tokyo, she would have the large house to herself, more private time, and a monthly living allowance from her husband. But to maintain her image as a good wife, Karen pretended to keep him. The next morning, Kippei was leaving for the countryside, and Karen stood at the bedroom doorway, giving him a hypocritical farewell. Sumire accompanied Kippei all the way to the station, her attentiveness and gentleness perfectly balanced. Kippei felt increasingly reassured, and before boarding the train, she confessed her feelings and gave him a passionate kiss. Sumire played along, but inwardly, she was already deeply disgusted. Sumire promised she would move there soon. Kippei happily left for the island. Sumire watched him from behind and wiped her lips fiercely. Kippei had just arrived at the accommodation arranged by the company when he saw graffiti covering the wall, filled with various insults directed at him, and the islanders watching him kept their distance. It turned out that, even before Kippei's arrival, Sumire had anonymously exposed his infidelity on the island's community website. The revelation was detailed, with complete photos, and it spread throughout the entire island. He became known as a habitual cheater, and even without appearing publicly, his reputation had already spread across the island. After cleaning the graffiti off the wall, an exhausted Kippei took out his phone, intending to seek comfort from Sumire. However, he found that he couldn't reach Sumire by phone, and all her social media accounts had been deactivated. He called the flower shop where Sumire worked, and the staff claimed she had already resigned. Sumire quietly disappeared from Kippei's life. To completely cut ties with Kippei, Sumire arranged to meet Karen and lied that she was being stalked. Sumire suspected the stalker was Kippei's colleague. She had previously encountered this colleague by chance and dined together, noticing the other person looking at her with strange eyes. For her own safety, she resigned and moved away. Sumire begged Karen to keep her resignation and move secret from Kippei. Karen deeply sympathized with Sumire's troubles and readily agreed. This was the promise Sumire needed. With it, Kippei would never be able to contact her again. On the island, Kippei couldn't contact Sumire and had to endure the cold stares of the villagers. Feeling hopeless, he lay in his dorm every day, not working, just staring at photos of him and Sumire. Kippei couldn't understand the series of misfortunes that had recently befallen him. Meanwhile, Sumire's revenge on her ex-husband was officially complete, and her next target was none other than the defenseless Karen.
At this point in the plot, the screenwriter finally addressed the question fans have been asking. Why would a beauty like Karen bully Sumire, even going so far as to steal her ordinary husband? Karen knew from a young age that her face was her most valuable asset. With her beauty, she was accustomed to being admired and believed that those without looks didn't deserve happiness. When she saw the ordinary-looking Sumire consistently getting perfect scores on her exams, she felt a surge of resentment and jealousy. To rebuild her self-esteem, she unscrupulously isolated and bullied Sumire. After graduating from high school, Karen, who failed to get into university, took a job as a receptionist. Even after entering the workplace, she maintained her superior attitude and was full of contempt for the advances of ordinary male colleagues. Karen believed that only the elite were worthy of her beauty. Karen searched far and wide for an elite who matched her, and she actually found it, Kippei. Kippei was an elite figure at a major corporation, with a respectable job and a good income. Despite his average looks, he was an ideal candidate. Karen initiated a conversation, and everything went smoothly. However, she soon discovered that Kippei was married. However, Karen didn't mind. She could leverage Kippei's connections to meet other high-quality, unmarried men. So, she shamelessly invited Kippei to a social gathering, hoping to further strengthen their relationship. Kippei quickly declined, claiming he was married, and explicitly stated that he had promised his wife never to have any contact with the opposite sex behind her back. This statement piqued Karen's curiosity, and she insisted on seeing the wife he was talking about. When she saw the photo, she was stunned. Kippei's wife was none other than Sumire, the woman she had once despised. Not only was Sumire married, but she had married a highly selected, high-quality man. Even more difficult for her to accept was that Sumire was a top graduate of the University of Tokyo. At that moment, she completely broke down. Karen vowed to do whatever it took to get Kip-Pei to her side. This wasn't out of love, but rather a desire to completely shatter Sumayer's happiness. Karen succeeded, but after marriage, she discovered that Kip-Pei wasn't the ideal man she'd imagined. Kip-Pei was dull and inflexible, and she had no interest in him at all. But that didn't matter. As long as he paid his salary on time, life would go on. When she needed love, Karen could always find other excitement. Now that Kip-Pei had gone to a remote island, she was completely liberated. Now, Karen spent her days enjoying herself, occasionally having afternoon tea with Sumayer. Her life was truly comfortable. She treated Sumayer as a close friend with whom she could confide, unaware that she was secretly seeking revenge against her. Sumayer deliberately took her to Mirai's bar, and after a few drinks, Karen's spirits grew, remarking on the joy of having a handsome man to drink with. Sumayer hinted at Mirai, who pretended to buy them a drink before making a small request. Mirai asked Sumayer and Karen to help him find out about the new bar across the street. Karen wasn't interested, but Sumayer immediately encouraged her, saying Kip-Pei wasn't home and it was time to let loose. Karen was immediately intrigued and dressed up that evening to go with her to the bar. Seeing Sumayer, she complained about her plain attire. As soon as they entered the bar, young men approached them. They praised Karen's beauty and appearance, and Karen reveled in the attention, her vanity greatly satisfied. From then on, she began frequenting nightclubs, buying a new outfit every time she went out. Sumayer, on the other hand, remained unadorned, making Karen look even more dazzling. Karen reveled in the pleasure of being admired, unaware that the young men before her were all paid by Sumayer and Mirai. Sumayer's simplicity was deliberate, designed to tempt Karen into indulging in vanity and squandering Kip-Pei's money. In less than 2 weeks, she had not only spent all her living expenses, but also overdrawn her rent. When the bank statement arrived, she was stunned. To pay the bank, she had no choice but to call Kip-Pei to ask for living expenses. Kip-Pei complained that his life was even more difficult, and Karen tactfully hung up. Without the living expenses, she had no intention of going out to work. She would rather scrape by than struggle for money. But when she saw Sumayer wearing designer jewelry, she couldn't help but feel envious. Seeing her lack of funds, Sumayer took the opportunity to pull out a business card from a company that offered service jobs. While she didn't know the specifics of the job, she knew the daily salary was 30,000 yen, and they only wanted attractive women. Karen was tempted, but feared it was a trap. Sumayer hinted that Karen's beauty would definitely get her hired. This remark touched Karen's vanity, and she immediately agreed to the interview. After the meeting, the company began to explain the job description to her, which actually involved renting out a girlfriend. Although it sounded a bit unsavory, Karen was immediately attracted by the high monthly salary of 1 million yen. The president immediately introduced her to a high-profile client who was not only handsome, but also a top executive at a major company. On their first meeting, he took Karen to dinner at Ginza's most expensive restaurant and gave her a generous tip afterward. Karen, overjoyed by the huge sum of money, immediately called the president and expressed her willingness to continue taking orders. Karen thought she had found the perfect job. However, she had no idea that the so-called president and high-profile client were both arranged by Sumayer and Mirai, with the goal of completely plunging Karen into the abyss of depravity. However, Sumayer hadn't expected Karen to fall so easily. Just as Sumayer was feeling proud of her plan's smooth progress, an anonymous letter appeared outside her apartment. The contents of the letter unnerved her. The sender not only knew Sumayer's true identity, but also had complete knowledge of her revenge plan. Sumayer's first suspicion was Mirai, but she quickly dismissed this suspicion. Mirai's help accelerated her revenge, and she firmly believed Mirai was her most reliable friend. So she took the letter and told Mirai about it. Mirai was surprised by its contents. He only knew Kip-Pei by the name on the letter. Who is this Aoi? Sumayer confessed that she was Aoi, the name she had used when she was Kip-Pei's ex-wife. She then produced a photo of her before her plastic surgery. Sumayer told Mirai everything about her experiences with Karen and Kip-Pei. Mirai also confided in Sumayer about a childhood trauma. When he was young, his mother divorced him because his father had cheated on him, and he lived with her after the divorce. However, his mother's mental state became unstable, and he couldn't bear it any longer. He ran to his father for help. However, his father had moved in with his lover and no longer cared about him. When he returned to his mother's house, she had left him forever. With no one to rely on, he could only work as a gigolo. He couldn't forgive someone who so carelessly trampled on others' happiness, so Mirai resolutely helped Samaire. Their similar past experiences strengthened their mutual trust. To find the mysterious person who sent the anonymous letter, Mirai suggested that he lurk around Samaire and observe for any suspicious individuals. The next day, Mirai followed Samaire to a meeting with Karen, but after a day of watching, he didn't see anyone suspicious. As soon as the two returned to the bar, they received another anonymous letter. The mysterious person knew Samaire and Mirai's plan. The mysterious person knew that Samaire and Mirai were searching for him. The mysterious person also stated that he would not forgive Samaire and Mirai for framing Kitpei and warned them not to hurt others again. This letter further confused the two. Mirai analyzed that the mysterious person could not be Kitpei or Karen. But Samaire didn't know many people, so who could this person be? Samaire had no idea what the mysterious person was doing. Just then, Karen called and said she could no longer continue her girlfriend rental business because Kitpei was returning to Tokyo the following week. Samaire was shocked by this news. If Kitpei returned, all her hidden secrets would be exposed. Although Kitpei's stay was only 3 days, it was enough to completely disrupt Samaire's revenge plan. When Kitpei returned, he would undoubtedly discover Karen's reckless spending and confiscate her bank card. Samaire's plan was to burden Karen with a massive debt and have her abandoned by Kitpei. If Kitpei restricted Karen's spending, Samaire's debt plan would be difficult to implement. This time, Kitpei will desperately search for Samaire during these 3 days. He will undoubtedly inquire about Samaire's whereabouts from Karen. Given Karen's cognitive abilities, she's very likely to reveal relevant information to Kitpei. Once Kitpei learns Samaire's whereabouts, his revenge plan will likely be exposed. Furthermore, there's a mysterious and uncontrollable figure. Any misstep will derail Samaire's revenge efforts so far. Now, Samaire must devise a strategy. One that doesn't hinder Karen's debt plan, prevents Kitpei from searching for her, and still allows her to follow the clues to the mysterious figure. Driven by a strong desire for revenge, Samaire's eyes fell on the 2 threatening letters, and she quickly noticed something unusual. The first threatening letter, meticulously crafted from newspaper clippings, was meticulously worded and flawless. In the second threatening letter, Kitpei appears only as a given name, without a surname. Usually, only close relatives address each other by their first names, suggesting that the mysterious person is well acquainted with Kitpei. Furthermore, the mysterious person uses a female name, suggesting that she is likely a woman who frequently appears around Kitpei. They can use this to their advantage and ask Kitpei to help them find this mysterious person. First, Samaire records a video while holding up the first threatening letter. In the video, Samaire explains that she is being threatened by a mysterious person who demands that she disappear from Kitpei's presence and maintain her friendship with Karen. Samaire believes this mysterious person is a woman close to Kitpei, working to prevent her from meeting him. If Kitpei still wants to be with her, she has no choice but to find this mysterious person. To clear the obstacles and see her beloved Samaire, Kitpei will do everything in his power to track this mysterious person down. With this, they quietly handed the task of searching for the mysterious man to Kitpei. Kitpei, preoccupied with finding the mysterious man, had no time to look for Samaire. Samaire could then proceed with her plan to make Karen pay him back. Once the plan was finalized, they immediately took action. Mirai acted as a middleman, showing Kitpei the video Samaire had recorded. Kitpei fell for it. Mirai suggested that, to avoid alerting the mysterious man, he would act as a liaison between Samaire and Kitpei. Kitpei, unsuspecting, agreed. Kitpei's friends since childhood had been mostly men, and he hadn't met any other women since his career. Therefore, Kitpei concluded that the mysterious individual must be at the company. After returning to the office, he immediately began a thorough investigation of the mysterious individual. Meanwhile, Samaire continued her plan for Karen. Karen took the initiative to meet with Samaire and complained that upon her return, Kitpei had discovered an inexplicable 500,000 yen balance on her bank card. Thankfully, Samaire had previously instructed her to explain the situation by saying she was helping a friend pay the bill. However, Kitpei clearly didn't believe it and threatened to divorce Karen if she continued to spend recklessly. Karen solemnly promised Kitpei that she would promptly urge her friend to return the money. To cover the 500,000 yen financial shortfall, Karen naturally needed to continue her part-time job as a girlfriend rental. She was confident that with her outstanding appearance, she could earn 500,000 yen in just 2 days. After all, the last guest she had received had given her a 100,000 yen tip. Samaire smiled faintly at this. Karen eagerly asked the president to introduce her to a client. The client only tipped Karen 15,000 yen and complained that she had nothing but a pretty face, but no emotional value. The client offered to increase the tip if Karen would give him a kiss. Karen left angrily. Samaire, standing nearby, filmed the scene with her phone. After returning home, Karen was disgruntled and immediately asked the president to introduce her to a high-quality client like the one she had last time. The president introduced her to a client who was said to be generous. The man arrived with a suitcase and offered to take Karen to a 5-star hotel on their first meeting. Karen thought they were going to play games, but the man smiled and explained they were just going to chat over tea. To secure the corresponding payment, Karen reluctantly agreed to accompany him to the hotel. After finishing their tea, the man offered a 50,000 yen tip, which was more than enough for Karen's beauty. If Karen wanted more, she would have to add some services as he requested. Then, the man offered Karen a 50,000 yen tip as a lure. If Karen accepted, he would add more tips based on the services provided. Karen, driven by the money, finally agreed reluctantly. The man first had Karen put on a maid outfit, then he said he wanted to have sex with her. Karen instinctively refused, and the man immediately raised the price by 500,000 yen. Karen wavered at the mention of 500,000 yen, completely forgetting her bottom line. Samaire, observing from outside the hotel, noticed that Karen and the man hadn't appeared for a long time. Concluding that the situation was unfolding as she had predicted, Samaire left, satisfied. However, to Sumaire's surprise, Karen held her ground at the last moment. She pushed the man aside and fled the hotel with a 100,000 yen tip. After returning home, Karen was consumed by remorse. Karen, who always held herself in high regard, had nearly sold herself out for a mere 500,000 yen. This 500,000 yen shortfall was difficult for Karen to fill in the short term. After careful consideration, Karen decided to exploit Kippei's kindness and soft character and not divorce her. After Kippei's return, she tearfully lamented how lonely she had been since Kippei left Tokyo, finding herself filling the void with shopping and unknowingly spending 500,000 yen. Tears were undoubtedly Karen's most effective weapon. She skillfully exploited Kippei's compassion. Kippei not only forgave Karen for her extravagant spending, but also blamed herself for making her lonely, ultimately apologizing to Karen. Meanwhile, Kippei had identified 3 female colleagues who were most likely to be the mysterious individual. Colleague A, Kippei Sr., is older and has 3 children. She's usually candid and sincere, and her actions are consistent with her words. Coworker B, Kippei's subordinate, is quiet and shy around men. Kippei and her interactions are limited to work. Finally, there's colleague C, also Kippei's subordinate. She enjoys buying designer brands and pursuing fashion, and rumor has it she even owes a bank loan. Before Kippei could even ask, she preemptively inquires about Kippei's situation. Kippei told Mirai about the 3 people and believed that colleague C was most likely the mysterious person. Mirai relayed this to Samaire, and they both agreed that colleague C was likely writing the threatening letter due to debt. To test their suspicions, Samaire asked Kippei to test colleague C. Kippei pretended to ask colleague C for advice on how to get over his persistent lover. He wanted to return to his family, but didn't know how to break up with his lover. Colleague C, without hesitation, suggested finding a third person to talk his lover out of his troubles. This suggestion perfectly matched the logic behind the mysterious person's threatening letter to force Samaire to leave. This further deepened their suspicions about colleague C. Just as they were considering their next move, the mysterious person sent another threatening letter. The letter stated that the mysterious person was angry that Samaire and Kippei hadn't broken up, and that she would call Samaire in person at 7 p.m. the following evening to speak to her personally. If Samaire still refused to break up, she would expose Samaire's identity and plans. Samaire believed this phone call would be a crucial opportunity to confirm the mysterious person's true identity. All they had to do was have Kippei call colleague C at the same time as the mysterious person called. If colleague C didn't answer, it would prove she was the mysterious person. The next day, the call came exactly as scheduled. The mysterious person used a voice changer. During their conversation, Mirai instructed Kippei to call colleague C. After verification, colleague C answered the call normally and clearly stated that they were not the so-called mysterious person. According to Kipiai's subsequent investigation, colleague A was in a company meeting during the time of the call, so colleague A was also ruled out. This left only one person, colleague B, Haru, as the mysterious person who sent the threatening letter. What surprised Samaire deeply was that Haru's behavior was not out of malice, but stemmed from her deep inner protectiveness of Kippei. It turned out that Haru had been secretly in love with Kippei, but his shy personality prevented him from expressing his love, so he could only silently watch over Kippei. When Kippei pretended to be on a business trip and got involved in a scandal with a mistress, Haru, out of a desire to protect Kippei, decided to find the mistress and persuade her to stop. However, as Haru pondered how to find the mistress, she suddenly thought that Kipiai's ex-wife might have some clues, so she went to Kipiai's old apartment to look for Samaire, only to find out she had already moved out. Nevertheless, the building manager revealed to her that when Samaire moved, her face was covered with bandages. This detail led Haru to suspect plastic surgery. Following this lead, Haru identified several top plastic surgery clinics in Tokyo. After some investigation, she found Sumaire's medical records. By bribing part-time staff, Haru obtained detailed information about Sumaire's medical treatment. Based on Sumaire's medical records, she found Sumaire's new address. Sumaire's new home was surprisingly close to Kipiai's, and not only had she undergone plastic surgery, but she also changed her identity to get closer to Kippei. In Haru's eyes, this was undoubtedly her ex-wife's unwillingness to accept the divorce, obsessively entangling herself with her ex-husband after plastic surgery. Thinking about Sumaire's motives, Haru felt a chill down her spine. When she discovered that Samaire even had an accomplice, she decided to intervene. To protect her beloved Kippei, Haru sent a threatening letter to Samaire, warning her to stop immediately. Samaire listened to her explanation with a helpless smile. She confessed that her goal was not to save her marriage, but to take revenge on her ex-husband and his wife, Karen. Then, Samaire detailed the entire process of her being bullied, her partner being taken away, and ultimately being abandoned. However, after hearing her story, Haru, while sympathizing with Samaire and understanding her desire for revenge, could not stand by and watch her torment Kippei. So, she decided to tell Kippei everything about Sumaire's plans. Hearing this, Samaire hurriedly knelt before Haru and said she would give everything for revenge. She could not give up halfway, especially not forgive Karen. Samaire begged Haru not to tell Kippei for the time being. After she finished her revenge against Karen, Haru could even let her atone with Kippei. Seeing the humble and desperate Samaire before her, Haru finally softened and agreed. However, Haru made it clear that she would not support Samaire's stance. With this assurance, Samaire showed a faint, almost imperceptible smile. She knew that the naive Haru had no malicious intent, only being driven by love and a sense of righteousness born of self-righteousness. Samaire keenly realized that as long as she made Haru understand the true nature of Karen and Kippei, Haru would definitely change her stance and even become her friend. So, Samaire arranged to meet Karen and secretly had Haru observe. She did not tell Haru beforehand that Karen was Kipiai's wife. During the meeting, Karen told Samaire that the 500,000 debt Kippei discovered last time was her own, and Kippei not only forgave her, but also apologized to her. Their relationship not only didn't collapse, but improved even more than before. Samaire was stunned upon hearing this. She hadn't expected Kippei to forgive Karen. Karen shamelessly compared Kippei to a man who only gives money, claiming that a little tear would be enough to keep him firmly under her control. Before leaving, Karen also advised Samaire to find a suitable man quickly and not to waste her beauty. Haru heard every word Karen said and couldn't believe that the virtuous wife Kippei spoke of was actually like this. Such vain and superficial people are completely unworthy of Kippei. Seeing her angry expression, Samaire felt secretly pleased. She had successfully made Haru harbor hatred towards Karen. A few days later, Samaire repeated her old trick, making Haru witness another side of Kippei. Samaire pretended to come looking for Kippei, allowing Haru to observe from the side. Seeing Samaire, Kippei eagerly invited her into the house, thinking she was there to rekindle their relationship. When Samaire asked about his reconciliation with Karen, Kippei explained that Karen had changed a lot, and he was giving her a chance out of kindness, then confidently claimed that his true love was still Samaire. Samaire aimed to thoroughly expose Kipiai's hypocrisy. She also used her tears to pretend to be heartbroken and bid a tearful farewell. Kippei was indeed fooled. Overwhelmed by guilt and possessiveness, Kip-Pei pounced on Samaire. At this moment, Kip-Pei was completely unaware that Haru was witnessing everything. Haru was deeply disappointed in Kip-Pei, seeing his disgraceful behavior. Instead of explaining or apologizing, he asked Samaire to keep quiet and persuaded Haru, claiming that she was dismissed entirely because of rumors of infidelity. Haru saw that Kip-Pei only cared about his reputation and situation, and that he wanted Samaire to handle the aftermath, completely shattering her last bit of hope. It turned out that the person she liked was actually a thoroughly cowardly, incompetent, and morally corrupt man. After her illusion shattered, Haru felt some pain inside, but she still thanked Samaire for helping her see Kip-Pei's true nature and understood Samaire's feelings of revenge against Karen. She would no longer stop Samaire's revenge plan. Samaire secretly let out a sigh of relief. She successfully changed Haru's stance. Samaire's revenge did not stop. She had already secretly recorded a video of Kip-Pei attempting to assault her and posted it online anonymously. After the video was released, there was a strong reaction within the company, and colleagues condemned Kip-Pei. The video reached Kip-Pei's workplace, and his dormitory was covered with graffiti and posters of the video screenshots. He hurriedly tried to clean up in chaos, only for villagers to post his embarrassing appearance online again. His social media accounts were flooded with malicious attacks and messages and calls with insults and threats kept coming to his phone. Kip-Pei's reputation was completely shattered. He broke down mentally and stayed indoors. After long-term absence, he was suspended and his salary was cut by the company. Karen discovered her allowance was not arriving on time and realized Kip-Pei had been demoted. She didn't care about the reason for Kip-Pei's suspension. She was only angry that his salary had been halved, and she could no longer spend freely. Karen openly admitted that she had taken over Kip-Pei from someone else, only loving his status and wealth. If Kip-Pei was dismissed, her losses would be severe. Hearing this, Samaire's face suddenly changed. Although Karen had destroyed her happiness, she showed no remorse. Instantly, a more sinister revenge plan gradually formed in her mind. Samaire deliberately boasted to Karen about her new wealthy boyfriend and stimulated Karen's jealousy. She keenly perceived Karen's vanity and encouraged her to abandon Kip-Pei. But Karen said that if she left Kip-Pei, she would immediately run out of pocket money. Samaire came up with a plan, persuading Kip-Pei to take a leave of absence, return to his hometown, and rest for a while. She suggested that Karen stay in Tokyo during this time to maintain the marriage, which could stabilize her income, avoid Kip-Pei's interference, and make it easier to find a wealthier partner. Samaire also lured Karen to attend a high-end private party, claiming that the guests were elite men earning over 30 million yen annually, and her own boyfriend was met there. Under the strong temptation and competitive mindset, Karen agreed. Samaire took her to the party, and as she looked at the elite men inside, Karen felt as if money was beckoning her. Samaire had already found a target for her, an attractive man named Kaneshiro. Under Samaire's deliberate arrangement, Karen successfully met Kaneshiro. Samaire's new revenge plan seems to be progressing smoothly, but what Samaire didn't expect was that Kinjo, whom she used as a tool for revenge, turned out to be her biggest obstacle on the path of her revenge. At the party, Karen was immediately captivated by Utsuki's elegant conversation and graceful manners. Karen immediately dropped her usual reserve and defensiveness, cuddling into his embrace. Samaire, watching from the sidelines, sneered disdainfully at Karen's affected manner. She felt that Karen had been fooled again. After the party, Karen couldn't wait to show off Utsuki to Samaire. Driven by a competitive streak, she desperately wanted to see the quality of Samaire's wealthy boyfriend. This suited Samaire's heart perfectly, so she suggested a 4-person date with their partners. Karen readily agreed. After all, her husband, Kip-Pei, was recovering from his illness and had no time to restrict her actions. Karen decided to make Utsuki her next husband. Samaire had already prepared for this double date. She found an actor named Kei from her drama group to play her wealthy boyfriend. To ensure the role was flawless, Samaire personally compiled a thick stack of materials, meticulously planning every action and line for the double date. Kei, holding the materials, expressed sincere admiration for Samaire. While he wasn't sure what Samaire would ultimately do, he promised to do his best to cooperate with her. To make their relationship feel natural, Samaire and Kei practiced their date for a whole day. She held Kay's arm, and the two of them laughed as they walked, like a real couple. However, this scene was witnessed by Karen. This was the first time Mirai had seen Sumire smile so brightly. He assumed this man was Sumire's real boyfriend, and a sense of disappointment welled up in his heart. In reality, Mirai had developed a different kind of affection for Sumire while helping her. Seeing someone else with Sumire, Mirai finally realized he had fallen in love with her. As night fell, he finally couldn't contain his doubts and took the initiative to meet Sumire. During their meeting, Mirai suppressed his true feelings, declaring that he considered Sumire his best friend. As a friend, he couldn't watch Sumire pursue her dangerous revenge alone. Mirai wanted to help Sumire complete all of her revenge plans. This wasn't driven by admiration for Sumire, but rather by the deep psychological trauma left by his parents during his childhood. It reflected both his extreme hatred for infidelity and his deep regret for his inability to resist as a child. Fate brought him together with Sumire, a woman with whom he shared a common sympathy. He offered to become her accomplice, aiding in her revenge plan. But Sumire declined, determined to pursue her ultimate revenge alone, unwilling to implicate the kind-hearted Mirai. On the day of the date, Karen arrived in full attire, her purpose clear, to outshine Sumire and please Ilsuki. Seeing Sumire with her wealthy boyfriend, Karen felt a surge of superiority. Since Sumire wasn't as good-looking as Ilsuki, her confidence soared, and she considered herself a cut above Sumire. When Ilsuki showed up in a luxury car, Karen's sense of superiority reached its peak, and she felt certain of victory. This was exactly what Sumire wanted. The brighter her smile now, the greater the contrast would be when she broke down and cried later. After arriving at the restaurant, Sumire took some photos of Karen and Ilsuki. Then, according to Sumire and Kay's script, Kay would deliberately smudge his lips while eating, and Sumire would pull a tissue from her purse and wipe them for him. Beyond the show of affection, the more important thing was to show Karen her latest handbag. Sure enough, upon seeing the handbag, Karen immediately praised it as a limited edition. Sumire said shyly, "This is a gift my boyfriend flew to Italy to buy for her." Karen's face darkened at this, and she remembered the outdated handbag she'd received for her birthday, and a surge of anger welled up inside her. Ilsuki, seeing the handbag's value, couldn't help but wonder about Kay's occupation. Kay humbly explained that he currently manages his parents' assets, in layman's terms, an investor. This remark pierced Karen's nerves. Karen thought to herself, Sumire has found a partner with deep pockets. She suppressed her anger and maintained a calm exterior. Sumire, perceptive, seized the opportunity and decided to deliver a fatal blow to Karen. Sumire and Kay casually asked Ilsuki about their honeymoon, deliberately provoking Karen's sensitivity. After all, this was a taboo for Karen. Her marriage was forced upon her without even a wedding banquet, let alone a honeymoon. Karen's face was livid, her emotions on the verge of losing control. To maintain a respectable appearance in front of Ilsuki, she struggled to suppress her anger, finally using the excuse of going to the restroom to calm herself. Sumire, seeing this, suggested that Ilsuki visit her, something he was eager to do. Karen, upon seeing Ilsuki, immediately adopted a defiant air and suggested going somewhere alone. After a few tacit pleasantries, the two of them left side by side. Sumire gazed at their backs, a satisfied smile curling her lips, exactly what she had hoped for. She knew Karen would do anything to win over Ilsuki, pushing her boundaries. After thanking Kay and paying her commission, Sumire gracefully departed. However, Kay had a plan for her to go somewhere. The two of them went to Kay's drama rehearsal studio, where Kay wanted Sumire to get to know him better. During these few days of role-playing, Kay discovered he had fallen in love with Sumire and longed to become her real boyfriend. Although Kay hasn't achieved fame yet, he believes he can achieve it in the future through his acting and his work. Just then, he received a call. After hanging up, he confessed that the agency had arranged for him to appear in multiple offline advertising spots. If Karen and Ilsuki saw them, his identity as an actor would be exposed, and he might no longer be able to play Sumire's boyfriend. Sumire's face shone with disappointment. Kei couldn't bear it, but he explained that even if he hadn't agreed to the agency, he could still refuse the advertising. Since he had already agreed with Samayer, he would prioritize fulfilling the contract. Samayer immediately stopped him, knowing that this endorsement was a precious opportunity for Kei to debut, and missing it would leave her with a lifelong regret. She suggested reviewing the contract terms and finding a solution that would accommodate all parties. The partnership agreement was valid for 6 months, and the advertising would only be shown at train stations in China. Samayer, judging by this, believed that Karen and Lutsuki in Tokyo would be unlikely to see the ads, so she decided to combine revenge with Kei's debut and give it a try. As night fell, Samayer had just arrived home when she received a triumphant call from Karen, announcing her victory. Karen, unable to conceal her excitement, declared that she had won Lutsuki's heart, her words filled with the certainty of becoming the president's wife. After hanging up the phone, Samayer confessed, implicitly mocking Karen's ignorance. The man she'd been pursuing was actually married. The affair between a married man and a married woman was a double betrayal set in Samayer's revenge plan. And this was just the beginning. The real drama was yet to come. When they met again, Karen excitedly described to Samayer every aspect of Lutsuki's near perfection. Karen was still uneasy about Lutsuki's phone being shielded from her, a sense of secrecy that only deepened her belief that he was hiding a secret. So, Samayer proposed to force him again. She would then help Karen determine if Lutsuki was an unfaithful partner. On the day of the date, Samayer deliberately sent Karen and Kei away, and Karen returned, pretending to take a phone call. Alone with Lutsuki, Samayer, acting as her friend, questioned Lutsuki's true feelings about dating Karen. Lutsuki declared loudly he's really dating Karen, and he plans to propose to her. Karen beamed at the answer. It turned out to be a carefully orchestrated plot by Samayer. To ensure that Lutsuki's words were what Karen wanted to hear, she called Lutsuki beforehand, hinting that she harbored suspicions of infidelity. The two then staged the scene together. However, after the scene, Lutsuki's interest in Samayer rekindled. Lutsuki said the next time Samayer calls, he hopes it's for a date. After leaving the restaurant, Karen kept showing off the limited edition earrings Lutsuki had bought for her. From her smug tone, it was clear that she had completely dispelled her doubts about Lutsuki. Just when Samayer thought her plan had succeeded, a scene unfolded around the corner that stunned them both. A group of people were handing out flyers for an ad campaign featuring Kei, and his large billboard stood out prominently. Samayer and Kei stood there in shock, confused as to how an ad released in China could appear here. Karen and Isuki quickly stepped forward to take a flyer. They both stared at Kei and asked, "What's going on?" Kei is clearly an investor. How did he become a spokesperson? Kei was speechless for a moment and instinctively looked to Samayer for help. Kei openly admits that he finds it difficult to hide the truth and confesses that he is actually an actor. He claims to have developed feelings for Samayer and intends to pursue a relationship, but due to feeling inferior because of their differing statuses, he fabricates a false identity to develop a romance with her. After speaking, Kei gives Samayer a meaningful glance and then leaves calmly. Samayer, not having time to think it through, quickly follows him. Karen and Itsuki, seeing this, assume she is going to confront Kei. Samayer thanks Kei for his clever cover. Although the crisis is temporarily resolved, their cooperative relationship ends here. Before parting, Kei openly states that he has noticed Samayer deliberately plays the role of a close friend in front of Karen, and asks if she has any intention of targeting Karen. Samayer does not deny Kei's suspicion, only indicating that she has harbored jealousy towards Karen since childhood. After adjusting her emotions, Samayer turns back and encounters Karen's sarcastic provocation. To soothe Samayer, who is disappointed in love, Karen suggests that the three of them go together to Mirai's bar for a drink. Samayer cannot refuse and agrees to go along. As expected, as soon as Karen sits down, she publicly begins to humiliate Samayer with harsh words. Itsuki warns Karen to speak carefully, but Karen does not hold back and becomes even more reckless. Samayer suppresses a bitter smile, secretly engraving every harsh insult from Karen in her heart. After Karen and Itsuki leave, Mirai notices that Samayer's revenge plan is not going smoothly and offers to help her take revenge again. However, Samayer only responds with a smile and politely declines his offer. Later, Samayer decides to play her trump card to push Karen into a desperate situation. Her ace is Sakurako, Itsuki's wife. The two go together to the weekly magazine office and submit concrete evidence of Itsuki's infidelity and domestic violence. In fact, initially Samayer was only attracted to Itsuki's status as a married scoundrel, believing that Itsuki and Karen were a perfect match, and she planned to use Itsuki to set a love trap for Karen. It wasn't until Samayer accidentally saved Sakurako, who was attempting to commit suicide, and saw her covered in wounds, that she realized Itsuki was not only unfaithful, but also abusive towards his wife. At that moment, Samayer completely changed her plan. She was determined to help Sakurako break free from Itsuki's control. However, Sakurako told Samayer not to interfere, warning that if Itsuki found out, he would not let her go easily. Samayer did not back down and asked Sakurako to tell her the situation first before devising a plan. Sakurako accused Itsuki of initially approaching her with the intent of coveting her family's huge fortune. After marriage, Itsuki revealed his true nature, not only frequently cheating, but also abusing her. Faced with violence, she long felt powerless to resist, sinking into despair, her heart already filled with a strong desire to kill, harboring deep hatred for Itsuki. Samayer proposed that they team up to deal with Itsuki, and Sakurako agreed. The two exposed evidence of Itsuki's infidelity and domestic violence to the media. The next day, Itsuki's scandal dominated headlines across major media outlets. Among them, his private photos with Karen were prominently placed on the front page. Affected by the scandal, the stock price of Itsuki's company plummeted, and he was quickly dismissed from his CEO position. Enraged and humiliated, Itsuki wanted to assault Sakurako, but was countered by Sakurako with key evidence. Ultimately, Sakurako forced Itsuki to sign a divorce agreement, successfully ending the marriage. Samayer felt deeply comforted upon hearing the news. Not only did she successfully rescue Sakurako, but she also disgraced Karen and Itsuki, a pair of unscrupulous individuals. Karen, overwhelmed by public opinion and privacy leaks, was panic-stricken, but showed no self-reflection, instead blaming everything on Samayer, claiming that it was because Samayer arranged her blind date that she got involved in the adulterous woman. Controversy. Faced with online abuse and threats of privacy leaks, she had no choice but to seek help from Samayer. Samayer secretly sneered. Now she was planning her next move to make Karen lose everything she had. Therefore, Samayer suggested that Karen file for divorce first. Samayer explained, among all of Itsuki's extramarital partners, Karen is the only one who is married. Once the outside world learns about Karen's marital status, she will inevitably become the focus of public opinion. Karen retorted, even if I divorce, it can't change the fact that I was married. In response, Samayer proposed a trace-free solution, using household registration transfer to erase the marriage record. First divorce, then transfer the household registration to completely wipe out the marriage registration with Kippei. Once the public opinion subsides, if Karen still wants Kippei as her financial support, she can take the opportunity to feign weakness and tears, expressing her desire to reconcile. Using emotional tactics to rekindle Kippei's old feelings and have him accept her again. Karen thought Samayer's plan was very thorough and immediately went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to submit her divorce application. Samayer also thoughtfully advised Karen to handle it in the evening to avoid attracting attention. Karen praised Samayer's intelligence and mentioned her childhood experience. There was a girl in my class as smart as Samayer, though plain-looking. She always excelled academically and eventually got into a prestigious university. Karen harbored long-standing jealousy and bullying her, but she could never quell her inner dissatisfaction. Samayer realized that Karen was referring to herself, and a surge of furious anger suddenly welled up in her. While Karen was submitting her documents in the office area, she immediately contacted the already lurking reporters, instructing them to photograph Karen and expose her intention to divorce and abandon her husband. Karen completely collapses. Now she is not only embroiled in an affair scandal, but has also been portrayed as a venomous figure who abandoned her husband, likely facing online abuse searches. Samayer suggests Karen temporarily find a place to hide, and Karen immediately thinks of her maiden home. However, the next second, her father calls. Karen is about to act coquettishly, but her father angrily scolds her for being shameless. Someone sent photos and information. They already know about Karen stealing another man's husband and abandoning her sick husband, committing double infidelity. Her father sternly reprimands her for dishonoring the family and warns, if Kip Pei wants a divorce and compensation, don't expect to get money from the family. They have decided to cut ties with Karen. Hanging up the phone, Karen is tearful and helpless, while Sumire secretly rejoices. She was the one who sent the photos and information of Karen's affair to Kip Pei and Karen's parents, completely cutting off Karen's escape route to her maiden home. Karen finds herself in a dilemma, at a loss for what to do. Seeing this, Sumire suggests she rent a property temporarily to weather the storm. Karen immediately agrees, choosing a luxurious apartment with a monthly rent of 1 million yen without hesitation. Noticing Karen's complete lack of awareness of her situation and her basic financial planning skills, Sumire decides to further guide her into making worse economic decisions, plunging her deeper into financial trouble. To this end, Sumire pretends to be caring and reminds her it's better to rent a more affordable place. Given her current situation, she really shouldn't be living in such a high-end apartment. Karen perceives Sumire's contempt and insists she will not live in a cheap rental. This plan indeed works. To maintain her image, Karen finally rents an apartment costing 2 million yen per month. Seeing her goal achieved, Sumire can't hide her pride, and her lips unconsciously curl into a smile. Sumire thought her plan was progressing smoothly, but an unexpected variable had quietly emerged. After Otsuki's divorce, he was repeatedly asked for various compensations by his ex-wife. At first, he thought it was revenge from his ex-wife, but after calming down, he realized that his weak-willed ex-wife was incapable of planning such a meticulous scheme. Someone else was behind it. It was this person who carefully orchestrated the scandal, and he was determined to find out the true culprit and clear his shame. Therefore, Otsuki had his secretary investigate his ex-wife's recent whereabouts and also look into Karen's social relationships. After reviewing many media reports about his own infidelity, he found numerous negative reports involving Karen. Based on this, he speculated that the mastermind behind the reports was likely someone who harbored resentment or dissatisfaction toward Karen. For this reason, he decided to investigate Karen's social circle in depth. The secretary quickly found out Karen's ex-husband's surroundings were normal, and among Karen's acquaintances, only Sumire was a friend. Strangely, he couldn't find any information about Sumire. The secretary specifically pointed out the matchmaker who originally facilitated Otsuki and Karen's acquaintance was none other than this Sumire. Otsuki was suddenly enlightened upon hearing this. If Sumire is the mastermind behind the scenes, everything makes sense. Sumire carefully arranged for him to meet Karen first, then planned the scandal. Sumire's true target is Karen. He is merely a pawn in Sumire's scheme against her. Otsuki was furious and immediately ordered his secretary to investigate Karen's past, vowing to uncover the true reason and motive behind Sumire's hatred for Karen and to take revenge on Sumire. He then called Karen, falsely claiming to have identified the mastermind responsible for their disgrace, and proposed they join forces for revenge. Karen immediately asked about the person's identity, and Otsuki revealed that everything was orchestrated by Sumire. Unaware of this, Sumire believed victory was within reach and was determined to carry out the final plan, pushing Karen into an irreversible abyss. In a tale of calculated revenge and bitter comeuppance, we delve into the world of Replica, Ex-Wife's Revenge. Our protagonist, Sumire, chooses the most direct path to vengeance against the woman who bullied her, Karen. She reveals her true identity and declares war face to face. Before this dramatic confrontation, Karen had opportunities to uncover Lini's true identity. Otsuki Ori, for instance, had informed Karen that Lini was the mastermind behind their downfall. However, Karen dismissed these warnings, unable to believe that her obedient little assistant, who ran errands for her, could possess such cunning and capability. She even warned Otsuki not to sow discord, fearing he might scare away her useful and compliant best friend. Despite Karen's dismissal, Otsuki's suspicions about Lini lingered. Wolski's secretary provided a crucial clue, discovering that Karen's marriage to Kippei was stolen. Karen's conflict with Kippei's ex-wife was notoriously ugly, after which the ex-wife disappeared. Coincidentally, Kippei's ex-wife shared a surname with Lini, and both their information was difficult to trace. The secretary boldly speculated that Kippei's ex-wife and Lini were one and the same. Reflecting on the details, Otsuki found this highly plausible and decided to investigate personally. Meanwhile, Karen, to escape media scrutiny, moved into an apartment. To maintain her glamorous lifestyle, she bought expensive furniture on credit. Lini feigned advice, cautioning her against reckless spending, But Karen, confident she would quickly recoup the money, dismissed her. Karen then demanded Liney find her a high-paying part-time job. Liney, in a calculated move, offered her a strenuous, low-paying job distributing flyers, which also involved enduring people's disdain. Accustomed to luxury, Karen quickly gave up, abandoning Liney to seek more lucrative opportunities. This was precisely Liney's trap. She had anticipated that Karen, unable to endure hardship, would inevitably seek jobs offering quick money such as companion services. True to Liney's prediction, Karen remembered her past experience as a rental girlfriend and contacted the agency requesting high-quality clients. However, the agency rejected her, citing her negative publicity as a threat to their image. With no other options, Karen searched online for friendship part-time jobs, only to find they were all sugar daddy arrangements hinting at adult transactions. Disregarding the risks, Karen nervously selected a high-quality client. She met a man in his 60s who immediately proposed twice-monthly adult dates for 100,000 yen each. Karen hesitated, saying she needed time to decide. On her way home, she grumbled about the old man's low offer. Reality soon delivered a harsh blow. Kippei's parents sent Karen legal documents suing her for 2 million yen. And demanding she vacate Kippei's apartment immediately, Karen frantically asked Liney for solutions. Liney, playing her part, suggested that hiring a lawyer was the only option. Cornered, Karen reluctantly accepted the old man's offer. Afterward, she initially felt indignant, but her attitude made a complete 180-degree turn when the old man gave her a 10,000 yen tip. Liney observed everything. Karen had completely compromised herself, selling her body for money, and Liney's revenge plan was entering its final stage. However, a new variable emerged from Iltsuki. He obtained Liney's before and after plastic surgery photos, and professional comparison confirmed they were the same person. This meant Liney was indeed Kippei's ex-wife. Litsuki used this evidence to threaten Liney, demanding she agree to 3 things, or he would immediately expose her secret to Karen. First, Liney had to issue a public apology in a weekly magazine. Second, she had to pay him 10,000 yen. The third demand was the most important. To protect her revenge plan, Liney feigned agreement but asked for 3 weeks to raise the money. Litsuki saw through her delay tactics and threatened again, giving her only 1 week. He warned that if she didn't comply, he would not only tell Karen but also severely punish his ex-wife, Sakurako, whom Liney had saved. Liney, unwilling to see Sakurako suffer again, temporarily agreed to Utsuki's demands, much to his satisfaction. Litsuki, however, harbored an even more malicious plan. He intended to film a video with Liney and post it online to ruin her reputation. When his secretary asked how he got Liney to agree, he proudly stated he used his ex-wife as leverage. This was the breaking point for the secretary, who had long been displeased with Iltsuki's continuous harm to his ex-wife. To protect Sakurako, the secretary secretly informed her of Litsuki's threats. Instead of contacting Liney directly, Sakurako found Liney's helper, Mirai, and revealed Iltsuki's entire scheme and secrets. She hoped Mirai could help Liney retaliate. Mirai immediately arranged a meeting with Iltsuki at his bar. He directly stated that he knew about Iltsuki's threats against Liney and expressed his desire to join Iltsuki in seeking revenge on Liney. When Iltsuki questioned how he knew and why he was getting involved, Mirai explained that he was a former gigolo whom Liney, as his top client, had controlled by cutting off his client base. He claimed he had long wanted to teach Liney a lesson, and that Liney trusted him completely, confiding everything, including Litsuki's threats. Mirai promised success if they joined forces. Seeing Litsuki's hesitation, Mirai, to prove his sincerity, recounted the 3 conditions Litsuki had imposed on Liney. Once Litsuki let his guard down, Mirai pressed him for the true purpose of the 3rd condition.
恥ずかしい姿を録画してネットでばらまくんだよ。デジタルタトゥーで苦しめばいい。この俺を利用しようとするなんてバカなこと。最高の復讐だろ。最低だよ。は?
Then, Mirai dropped the act. He revealed he had recorded their entire conversation. He threatened to hand the recording to the police if Litsuki didn't back off. Litsuki scoffed, believing the recording wouldn't be admissible as evidence. Mirai countered by asking what if he sent it to Litsuki's future company. Sakurako had previously told Mirai that Litsuki was about to become a senior executive at a world top 500 IT company in the US. Mirai reasoned that if such a company received a recording potentially involving criminal activity, they would consider future risks and fire Iltsuki.
この会話を全て晒したら伊藤すみれ自身も傷つくんじゃないか。彼女は顔も名前も捨てる覚悟がある人間ですよ。
To save his career, Lutsuki had no choice but to agree to withdraw. Unaware of these developments, Rinne was still pondering how to deal with Lutsuki. The next moment, Mirai called her out and recounted the night's events, apologizing for acting without her permission and explaining he couldn't stand by while she was in danger.
俺すみれちゃんが好き。すみれちゃんの居場所はちゃんとある。それだけは覚えておいて。
Faced with his concern, Rinne turned and walked away. She was prepared to go to hell with Karen, affirming that you're on the path of revenge. There was no turning back. The next day, Rinne found Karen, ready to bring her revenge to a close. Karen, still boastful, gloated about her new high-paying client. Rinne then asked about Kippei's condition. With that, Rinne pulled a gift from her bag and presented it to Karen. As Karen opened it, the truth dawned. Karen expressed her shock, believing Rinne was her only best friend, and now Rinne had stolen her husband and brazenly told her to get lost.
吉平さんをないがしろにして自分も不倫をしてたのによくそんなことが言えるわね。はあ？正直今さら吉平さんなんてどうでもいい。そもそも最初に寝取ったのはあんたよ、かりん。
Stunned and confused, Karen saw Rinne as a completely changed person.
私の本当の名前はね、藤村葵。葵ちゃん？そんなわけないじゃん。あのブスが？すみれちゃん？
Rinne coldly confirmed that she had indeed changed. She confessed to undergoing plastic surgery specifically to return and seek revenge on Karen ***. She revealed that her revenge plan had proceeded so smoothly largely thanks to Karen. Karen's every choice, her infidelity, greed, aversion to work, and even her willingness to sell her body had propelled her deeper into the abyss, making Rinne's revenge unusually smooth.
かりん、クズでいてくれて本当にありがとう。
Gazing into Rinne's piercing eyes, Karen finally believed that the woman before her was the ugly girl she had once tormented. Rinne delivered the final blow. She had written a book detailing everything. From Karen's bullying in their student days, to Karen's self-degradation and becoming Lutsuki's mistress, to Rinne's transformation as a victim of bullying, undergoing plastic surgery, changing her name, and approaching Karen for revenge, every single detail was now public. Because the story was so sensational and scandalous, publishing houses were heavily promoting it. The ebook would be released online tonight, and physical copies would be in stores bright and early tomorrow. Karen, as the real-life villain, would not just be trending, she would be thoroughly branded as a seat-a villain of the century, scorned and even harmed wherever she goes.
あなたはもうおしまいってこと。
Will Karen finally concede defeat? The stage is set for her ultimate ruin, a meticulously orchestrated revenge now complete. Sumire wrote and published a book revealing her revenge experience and Karen's bullying behavior. The first page of the book features a before and after photo of Sumire's plastic surgery. The second page directly displays a high-definition photo of Karen during middle school and her detailed personal information. Sumire chronologically records each act of bullying and humiliation by Karen, as well as each step of her own revenge. All characters and locations involved in the book are real names accompanied by numerous high-definition images, providing readers with an immersive revenge experience. Once published, the book quickly sparked a heated response across the internet. Many readers expressed that the plot was full of twists and dramatic moments. For those familiar with Sumire, they felt genuine sympathy and concern for her journey. As for the villainous character in the book, Lutsuki, she could only rage in helpless fury. Sumire also specially sent a copy to Kippei, who was hospitalized in the countryside. When Kippei saw the cover with his ex-wife's name, he was momentarily confused. As he flipped through the pages, he was stunned. It turned out that the Sumire he had been thinking about was actually his ex-wife, who had undergone plastic surgery and deliberately approached him with revenge in mind. This ironic truth struck Kippei hard, causing him to break down mentally in an instant. The most embarrassed person was the villainous heroine, Karen. Soon, a kind-hearted netizen found Karen, who was a married woman involved in a scandal with Lutsuki. Karen's infidelity and bullying behaviors caused a sensation among Japanese netizens, with continuous condemnations. Numerous streamers gathered outside her new apartment to livestream, attempting to capitalize on the notoriety of this notorious villainess. When Karen appeared, she was chased relentlessly by streamers until her heels were worn out, and she barely managed to escape their pursuit. She intended to return to her hometown to lay low, but then received a call from her father who advised her not to come back. Her relatives and friends in her hometown had already seen the book. Her family had long lost face due to her infidelity, and now with this bullying scandal, they were unable to hold their heads high in the village. Her father announced that he had decided to cut ties with her.
なのよ。子供時代のただのいじりでしょ。
Stating that Karen would bear all consequences herself from now on. Karen planned to stay in a 5-star hotel to avoid the storm, but when she swiped her card, she found that the family card under Kipei's name had already been frozen. At that moment, she remembered she had already filed for divorce. From then on, she could no longer access any of Kipei's assets. She was filled with regret. However, Karen did not know that it was actually Sumire who had anonymously emailed Kipei's parents, prompting them to freeze the family card. Sumire's goal was to completely abandon Karen and push her into financial hardship. However, Karen immediately thought of seeking refuge with a client she had previously served. But those people were nothing more than lecherous individuals who cheated on their wives behind their backs. Now, Karen was already notorious, regarded as a villainess who bullied through infidelity, and no man would foolishly risk exposure by getting involved with her. In the end, Karen decided to return to Kipei's apartment, planning to sell her designer bags for cash. However, the streamers had already been waiting at the apartment door for Karen's arrival. After several twists and turns, Karen managed to sneak into the apartment, gathering all her valuable items to sell. Karen worked tirelessly all day, ultimately earning only 400,000 yen. Just as she was complaining about her meager income, she suddenly received a call from an unknown number. The caller claimed to be a lawyer appointed by Kipei's parents. Previously, Kipei's parents had filed a lawsuit against Karen, but she had never appeared in court to respond. Eventually, the court issued a default judgment, and Karen lost. She was required to pay Kipei's parents 2 million yen in damages immediately. Thus, the 400,000 yen she had just earned was quickly used for compensation. She had no choice but to use her remaining savings and checked into an internet cafe hotel. Accustomed to a comfortable life, Karen found it extremely hard to endure this environment. To quickly earn enough money to leave, she had to register a new account and restart working as a part-time girlfriend. Her first client appeared quite generous, and Karen tried to develop him into a long-term customer. However, the man only paid her 20,000 yen as a commission and clearly stated he would not continue the relationship. Karen's service attitude was poor, lacking emotional value, and most unacceptable to the client was that Karen's appearance was severely different from her photos.
今と全然違うじゃん。
Unwilling to accept this, Karen walked to the mirror only to be shocked by her reflection. The exhaustion from days of stress had left her little time to maintain her appearance. Now her face looked haggard with noticeable acne scars, and her hair had become sparse. She broke down and picked up her phone, intending to book a cosmetic procedure, but suddenly saw that Sumire was live streaming. She hesitated for a moment before clicking into Sumire's stream. Because Sumire was concerned that her book's publication might cause trouble for some unrelated people, such as the flower shop where she had worked part-time, Sumire decided to focus public attention on herself and Karen through a live broadcast. Once the stream started, Sumire clearly stated she was willing to answer all questions about herself, but also urged everyone not to involve unrelated individuals. Viewers reacted enthusiastically. Judging by the comments, public opinion was almost overwhelmingly supportive of Sumire's stance. Meanwhile, Karen could no longer bear to watch and quickly registered a new account under the name AAA, quietly entered the comments section and pretended to be Karen's friend. She wrote that Karen has been a kind and adorable girl since childhood, never bullying anyone, and Sumire, due to her ugly appearance and introverted personality, has long suffered from paranoid delusions. The bullying incidents described in the book are actually all fabricated by her. Once AAA's comment was posted, netizens in the comments section didn't know who to believe. Karen thought she had successfully distracted the public's attention. However, Sumire calmly opened a box filled with concrete evidence of Karen's bullying actions. She raised her middle school uniform covered in graffiti written by Karen. In the face of solid evidence, netizens gradually turned to support Sumire. Sumire noticed the details of this AAA account. In normal social interactions, strangers usually address each other by surname, but this account consistently used her first name directly. Sumire suspected that the account's user was Karen, and netizens immediately launched verbal attacks on Karen in the comments. Sumire stared at the camera and extended an invitation for a video call with Karen. She provocatively asked, "Aren't you feeling resentful facing the accusations from netizens, Karen? Or have you already accepted the fact that you bullied and there's nothing left to argue?" Many netizens urged Karen to respond and connect with Sumire in the comments. When Karen failed to respond for a long time, Sumire once again revealed key information. She disclosed that during high school, Karen had locked her in the equipment room and released a wasp to sting her. Sumire still keeps the diagnosis report from the sting. Hearing this, Karen hurriedly defended herself, but once the comment was posted, it completely exposed her identity. Netizens confirmed that the account under the name AAA was indeed Karen herself. Seeing this, Sumir directly invited Karen for an offline meeting to put an end to the matter once and for all. Karen initially wanted to refuse, but a malicious thought suddenly flashed through her mind. Thus, Karen proposed that only the two of them participate, and Sumire calmly agreed. Karen suddenly adopted a proactive attitude in accepting the meeting, making Sumir realize she must have a hidden scheme. But in order to successfully take revenge, Sumir would not back down. Mirai was worried that Sumir might be in danger and advised her to stop in time, but Sumir insisted she must win at all costs. Meanwhile, Karen had already contacted a human trafficker and handed over a photo of Sumir to him. This concludes episode 11. Next week, we will have the grand finale. Please subscribe our channel and help us continue creating. Thank you. The final chapter of The Ex-Wife's Revenge is here. The screenwriter didn't create too much suspense. Instead, they recreated the TV drama Hell for You. The male lead also became a tool to protect the female lead, and the school bully Karen also got her wish to go to prison. The story continues from the previous episode. The female protagonists Sumire and Karen agree to meet privately to make a final conclusion to her revenge plan. Mirai advises Sumire not to go, as Karen has already been cornered by the exposure and might take extreme measures. But how can Sumire be willing to stop at the last step? She is already prepared to perish with Karen. At home, she dialed Karen's phone, and they agreed to meet in the lobby of a certain hotel the day after tomorrow. Karen said nothing and simply hung up, which was an agreement to meet as planned. The day before the meeting, Haru arranged to meet with Sumire. She expressed concern that meeting Karen might be dangerous and wanted to know how Sumire planned to handle Karen. Sumire's plan was to use the evidence of bullying as bait, trick Karen into her apartment. She had already set up a camera in advance and would use persuasive tactics to make Karen admit to bullying her face-to-face, all while secretly live streaming the entire process online. Sumire wanted everyone to see Karen's true nature.
完全に終わるんじゃないですか、あの女。うまくいけばね。
Haru took a talisman out of her bag. In fact, Mirai had asked Haru to meet with Sumire, and this talisman was also handed over to her by Mirai. He knew he couldn't stop Sumire's revenge, so he hoped she would always carry this talisman.
危ないことはしないでください。わかってる。
After returning home, Sumire began setting up the cameras, but she also felt that this time was a bit too smooth, almost suspicious. To prevent the revenge from failing, she also devised a plan B, which involved a dagger. Clearly, this plan B had reached the point of possibly perishing together. The next day was the scheduled day. Haru took leave and went to Mirai's bar, worried that something might happen to Sumire, wanting to watch her live stream with Mirai. However, they waited until 7 p.m. with no sign of activity. Then, Mirai received a scheduled video from Sumire. It turned out she had recorded it in advance. Worried she might get into trouble and not have time to tell Mirai her thoughts, she agreed that if she couldn't finish everything by 7 p.m., the video would automatically be sent to Mirai. Now that the video has been sent, it means something has happened to Sumire. The content of the video isn't important to us viewers. It's just her gratitude and farewell, aimed solely at urging Mirai to save her. Sumire sighed. Indeed, something happened. She had just arrived at the agreed hotel when she was covered and dragged into a car by several men, and the person behind all this was Karen. Karen and the men took Sumire to a dilapidated house, where she was tightly tied to a chair, unable to move. Karen slapped her, looking proud, reminiscent of her bullying scenes in middle school. She had long seen through Sumire's live broadcast plan and shouted angrily, "Sumire has ruined my life like this, and I will make you pay 1,000 times over." She told Sumire that the man who grabbed her was an antisocial personality, and as long as she paid him, he would do anything. Karen had already discussed with that man to sell Sumire to the Middle East. But before that, Sumire had to restore Karen's reputation. She was to go live, clarify, and expose all the accusations in the book, claiming she fabricated the bullying incident and forged evidence out of jealousy towards Karen. Of course, after clarifying, she also had to sincerely apologize to Karen, or else she would be sold to the worst place in the Middle East by that trafficker, to suffer torture and humiliation. Sumire could only pretend to be obedient, but she proposed to use her own phone for the live broadcast. After considering, Karen thought it made some sense. But when she looked for Sumire's phone, she found a dagger in her bag. Actually, Sumire intentionally let Karen find the dagger, aiming to provoke her. Sure enough, Karen instantly went crazy, shouting, "I was just having a small conflict with you. I just want an apology from you, and you want to kill me?" At this moment, the man outside the door heard the noise and came in. He snatched the dagger from Karen's hand and warned her, "Don't ruin my merchandise." Sommire suddenly remembered what Karen had said earlier about men opening their eyes at money and quickly proposed a deal with the man. "My manuscript fee has already been paid. If you are willing to let me go, I will give you 10 million yen in return." Sure enough, the man was tempted. Karen also wanted to use her beauty to change his mind, but the man pushed her aside with one hand. He used the dagger to untie Sommire's ropes. Sommire walked in front of Karen and mercilessly mocked, "Do you still think you're the queen who can command the wind and rain just because of your looks?"
最近鏡見た？肌はボロッボロ、目は真っ赤、髪だってカッサカサ。
This sentence precisely angered Karen. In her fury, she turned around, grabbed the dagger, and slashed a wound on Sommire's face. The man rushed over to try to take the dagger from Karen, but during the struggle, Karen stabbed the man in the abdomen. The man immediately sprayed blood and collapsed. Karen, who stabbed the person, was not afraid at all. She even pointed her knife at Sommire and accused her, "This is all your fault." Sommire showed no hesitation. She was ready to sacrifice herself and even hoped that Karen would kill her now so that Karen could fall completely into the depths of prison. Under Sommire's constant provocation, Karen completely lost her mind and stabbed at Sommire with her knife. At the critical moment, Mirai appeared and blocked the stab for Sommire. The scene above is a perfect 1:1 remake of the TV drama Hell for You. Why do Japanese screenwriters love to have the male protagonist shield the female protagonist with a knife so much? The sound of police cars outside was getting closer. Sommire asked Mirai, "How did you find this place?" Mirai smiled and said, "I installed a tracker in the amulet. After watching the video, I ran over immediately. Before coming, I also asked Haru to call the police."
復讐終わった。
終わったよ。
In the end, Karen was arrested by the police for intentional homicide and illegal detention. She will probably spend the rest of her life in prison. After Mirai recovered, she and Sommire ran a bar together. Thus, Sommire's revenge plan was a complete success, and she also found a happy love. Do you like this ending? Recently, is there any TV drama you'd like me to explain? Please leave your comments. Don't forget to like and follow us.